What's up, everyone? Welcome to the April 6th edition of DraftKings Tournament Plays presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And as a reminder, you get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up and make a deposit at Prize Picks. Be sure to use the code Awesemo to receive a 100% first deposit bonus up to $100. We have a 6-game NBA slate tonight, so should be a bit easier to manage than last night's was. Last night's got a bit crazy with OKC deciding to do everything in their power to try and lose a basketball game. Still failed to do so. Made the slate very unusual. They do play again tonight. Remains to be seen what they do. We are still waiting on some news, particularly with the Phoenix Suns. Also waiting on news for a couple of players. So as always, be sure to tune in to the Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock on the Awesemo YouTube channel in the 2 hours leading up until tip. But for now, taking a look at 5 of the top tournament options on DraftKings using the Boom Bust tool on Awesemo.com. Starting at number 5, Paul George is projected for 11% ownership with a 16% chance of being in the optimal lineup. The Clippers have nothing to play for tonight, but I do expect them to give their guys full minutes unless we hear otherwise, because Paul George missed so much time this year. The Clippers need to get everything set for the playoffs, need to get their rotation set. You've seen the increased playing time for guys like Reggie Jackson and Marcus Morris since Paul George came back for that reason. So I expect that to be the case again tonight. They have a difficult matchup against the Phoenix Suns, but I mentioned a minute ago, that is one spot where we're waiting on news. The Suns have absolutely nothing to play for tonight. Wouldn't be surprising if we do get multiple players from the Suns ruled out and this matchup ends up being a little bit better for George. But either way, 16% chance of being in the optimal lineup. $9,500 price tag. They said prior to his last game that he was going to have his minutes restriction, which was already pretty loose, loosened even more. He had played about 32 or 33 minutes 2 games ago. Last game didn't get his final stint in the fourth quarter, so only finished at 29 or 30 minutes. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he gets back to his season average of 35 minutes tonight. He's averaged 1.31 DraftKings points per minute overall this season. Number 4, Evan Fournier, $4,600 price tag with shooting guard and small forward eligibility, taking on the Brooklyn Nets. Fournier is not a great fantasy producer, but he is projected for 15% ownership with a 21% chance of being in the optimal lineup. In the 7 games that Fournier has played without Julius Randle, Derrick Rose, or Kemba Walker this season, Fournier's only averaged 0.76 DraftKings points per minute and 25.4 minutes per game, but he does have a 22% usage rate, which is several points higher than his season average. If his shot is falling, it's likely you see him pick up a few extra minutes as well. Looks to be going a little bit under-owned tonight against Brooklyn. Number 3, Zach Levine is probable for tonight's game after missing last night. He has a difficult matchup against the Boston Celtics, but the Bulls are one of the only teams on this slate that have anything at all to play for. I don't know how much they care about catching Toronto for the 5 seed. They are pretty much locked into the 6 seed. Or can't do worse than the sixth seed, I should say. So I don't know how much they care, but they're one of the only teams that has anything to play for. Levine has averaged about 36 minutes per game in the games that he's played with Vucevic and DeRozan active this year. He's averaged 1.1 DraftKings points per minute, and he's only $7,600 with shooting guard and small forward eligibility. So while it is a difficult matchup against Boston, and Chicago does only have a 108 implied total, you can still count on or expect Levine to play around 36 minutes here and average a little bit over a fantasy point per minute. Number 2, Trey Young, projected for 21% ownership with a 23% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Young is taking on the Washington Wizards. The Hawks are 11-point home favorites, so there is certainly some blowout risk here. But Atlanta's not a great team, and it's relatively likely that Washington's able to keep this game somewhat competitive long enough for Young to get close to his season average. In the games he's played without John Collins this year, Young has averaged 35.8 minutes per game. He's averaged 1.52 DraftKings points per minute in those games, and he's only $10,500 on a slate that, while it does have Luka Doncic and Kevin Durant as pay-up options, Kyrie Irving as well, it's not nearly as deep in spend-up options as other slates recently. None of the top 3 MVP guys, Giannis, Jokic, and Embiid are playing tonight. So it should be a little bit easier to get to Trey Young. And number 1, on the other side, facing Trey Young and the Hawks, Kristaps Porzingis is $8,400 on DraftKings. I kind of thought that Washington would shut down Porzingis at some point after they were eliminated from the postseason, but that hasn't been the case. Porzingis played 27 minutes in 3/4 of a blowout win over the Timberwolves yesterday. He's averaged 29.4 minutes per game in the games he's played without Kyle Kuzma this season. And at least as of right now, he is not on the injury report for tonight's game for Washington. So he looks very good. He's $8,400, 21% projected ownership, 26% chance of being in the optimal lineup. So to recap, the top 5 tournament options on DraftKings as things currently stand: number 5, Paul George; number 4, Evan Fournier; number 3, Zach Levine; number 2, Trey Young; and number 1, Kristaps Porzingis.